Everyone, this is once again your instructor, Marilyn Pico. So for today's video, I'll be discussing about charges and electric force. So for my class, please make sure that you have your calculator ready with you, especially the scientific one. Kasi gagamitin natin siya as we go through our discussions. Since we'll be solving some problems and yung mga given natin is naka-scientific notation. So please make sure that you have your calculator ready para masundan nyo yung calculations natin. So for this week's lesson, this is our learning objectives. First is to define an electric charge, differentiate conductors from insulators, describe the process of charging by induction, and calculate the force that charges exert on each other. So dun sa calculation part, medyo simplified lang yung mga bibigay ko na example. So very simple lang yun. I will not be introducing anything that will require you complex calculations. So we'd just like to focus more on the use of the formula, okay? So for the problem. So let's first define what is an electric charge. So for instance, I'm sure na-experience yun ito probably, or maybe you have observed this. Usually if we have like plastic rods or fur, whether that's real or fake, are particularly good for demonstrating electrostatics. So when we say electrostatics, this is the interaction between electric charges that are at rest or nearly so. So meron tayong tinatawag na electric charges. Dalawa lang naman yan, isang positive at saka isang negative. So for instance, itong nasa picture natin, you have here a cat. No? So since yung fur niya kasi, nakaka-attract ng mga styro balls dito, yung ginagamit sa packaging. So this is like so real. Hindi yan, walang glue na dikit doon sa fur ng cat. So this is a classic demonstration of electrostatics. And siguro ewan ko kung na-experience ito, but usually, nung bata pa kami, ginagawa namin yung plastic cover. Parang nirarub namin siya sa table. And then gagawin namin, itatapat namin siya dito sa buhok namin. And typically, mapapansin namin na yung hair, yung buhok, tumataas siya para dumidikit siya dun sa plastic. Because actually, you can try that at home. So that is what you call as electrostatics, is a demonstration of that. So basically what happens is that after we charge both plastic rods by rubbing them with a piece of fur, we find that the rods repel each other. Okay, so this is a classic example na kung meron kayong plastic rods, let's say yung para siyang ano lang, parang straw, pero mas solid yung itsura niya, like plastic sticks for instance, o yung plastic straws. If you rub them with each other with a piece of fur, mapapansin nyo na kapag nilapit nyo siya, ang tendency magre-repel siya. Okay, pag sinabi natin repel, para siyang magkalayo, parang sa mga magnets. Kapag nagtabi kayo ng dalawang magnets, hindi nyo talaga siya literally papagdidikit kasi meron siyang repulsion. Okay, so pag sinabi natin repulsion, parang ayaw niya magdikit. Okay, they repel each other. Now, this is what happens in the charging stage. Okay, so for instance, you have your amber and you have cloth. Okay, no. Now, kung parehas silang in neutral state, pag sinabi nating neutral state, ang ibig sabihin nun, parehas yung number ng positive charge at saka ng negative charge. So for instance, in this case, yung amber meron siyang positive 2, meron siyang positive charges na 2, and then sa negative charges naman meron siyang negative 2. Now, sa cloth, if this is neutral, we can say na, for instance, here you have positive 3 and negative 3. So, pag inad nyo to, if you notice, ang magiging value niya ay 0. So, parang sa algebra lang. Now, the thing is, kapag nag-start yung charging process natin, if you rub them together, okay, so, i-rub nyo sila together o pagkiskisin nyo silang dalawa, what will happen now is that some of the charges are transferred from one body to another. Okay, so for instance, in this case, ang nangyari is that yung negative charges natin, okay, mas napunta siya dito sa amber, and then yung negative charges, yung positive charges na dito sa cloth. Okay, so in this case, we can say now na magkaiba na ngayon yung bilang ng charges nila. Mas marami yung bilang ng negative charges dito sa amber. So let's count that 1, 2, 3, 4. Yan. And then, dalawa lang yung kanyang positive charge. Okay, so now if you will add them, it's just like saying you have positive 2 and negative 4, so you have negative 2. So therefore, itong amber natin is negatively charged. Now, if we will look at the cloth, Okay, what do you notice? Mas marami ngayon dito ang positive charge. So you have 1, 2, 3. Okay, positive 3. And then you have one negative charge. Okay, so negative 1. So if you will add them, it's just like saying you have positive 3 and negative 1, you get a net charge of positive 2. So therefore, this one now is positively charged. Okay, so kailan nagkakaroon ng transfer of charges? If you have friction, yan, and you bring the two objects together. Okay, so these experiments and many others like them have shown that there are exactly two kinds of electric charge. So the kind that the amber, which is the negative one, and the kind on the silk, which is the positive one. You will do this in laboratory number 5. Di ba, pinapagdala ko kayo ng balloons. Dalawang balloon, make sure na yung dalawang balloon na yon ay identical. So pag sinabi natin identical, parehas ng kulay, parehas ng size. Okay? And then I ask you to bring a string or a yarn. Okay? And basically what you're gonna do there is that to observe itong ganitong transfer of charges. Okay? So make sure that you also have your gloves with you. Kasi pag hawak nyo na po yung dalawang object, dapat make sure that you have gloves. So para maiwasan natin yung pag-transfer ng mga charges. Okay, so we want to make sure that your experiment will be as flawless as possible. Okay, so just like magnets, similar charges repel and opposite charges attract. Okay, so yun lang yun. Kapag parehas po yung charges natin, for instance, parehas positive or meron kang parehas na positive charge and parehas meron kang negative charge, ang nangyayari is that they repel each other. Okay, so parang ayaw nila, kaya nila magkasama. But if you have opposite charges, ibig sabihin ng isa positive at ang isa negative, they are attracted to each other. Okay? Now, electrons and protons are the basic charges in ordinary matter. So pag tinignan natin yung atoms natin, lahat ng atoms, if you will look at your periodic table, meron siyang certain number of protons and certain number of electrons. For example, yung hydrogen. Hydrogen, ang atomic number niya ay 1. Ibig sabihin nun, in a neutral state, meron siyang 1 proton and 1 electron. Now, yung proton natin, siya ay positively charged, and then yung electron natin ay negatively charged. Now, ang charges is measured in terms of coulombs. Okay, ito po yung unit na ginagamit natin for charges. So, that's C. Okay, capital C. So, madaling tandaan. Now, ang value po ng ating charge for the electron, okay, for a proton, that is 1.6 times 10 raised to negative 19. So, napakalitan number nito. Ibig sabihin nito, meron kang 18 zeros before 1. And then yung sa electron naman, if you notice, that's negative 1.60 times 10 raised to negative 19. So mapapansin natin, parehas lang sila ng value. Okay? Yung 1.6 times 10 to the negative 19. Pero magkaiba sila ng sign. Okay? Kasi yung sa electron, that is negatively charged. And then for the proton, that is positively charged. Now, there are no other sources of charge. Okay? So an object is charged if it has an unequal number of protons and electrons. So, pwede nating sabihin na ang object ay charged kapag magkaiba, okay, unequal, magkaiba yung bilang ng kanyang protons and electrons. Now, kung ang object ay hindi charged, okay, it has no charge, we typically say na siya ay nasa neutral state. So, neutral yung charge niya, ibig sabihin, pantay yung bilang ng electron at ng proton. Okay, now let's move on to conductors and insulators. So pag sinabi natin conductors are those materials through or along which charge easily move. So madaling dumaan ang charges sa mga conductors. Parang you can imagine conductors like para siyang pinto na nakabukas, na labas-pasok ang tao. So ganun ang conductors, they easily let charges pass through them. Pag insulators naman, insulators are materials in which the charge is immobile or immobile. Pag insulators, ibig sabihin, siya yung type ng material that does not allow the passage of electrons. So, hindi basta-basta nakakadaan ang electron sa kanya. So, parang siya, parang pintuan na nakasara. Okay? So, hindi ka makakapunta from one room to another kapag sarado yung pinto. So, electrons are just like that. So, pag hindi sila makamove from one place to another, that material is considered to be as an insulator. Now, conductors are materials allowing electric charges to flow freely, while insulators are materials restricting the flow of electric charges. So, kung halimbawa, babalatan natin ng isang wire, isang electrical wire, mapapansin nyo, doon sa gitna, meron tayong tinatawag na copper conductor. Ayan. So, parang small wires na bundled together. So, this is your copper conductor. And then, yun yung nasa gitna, diba? And then, yung nandito sa labas, this is your plastic insulation, yung pinakabalot ng ating electrical wire. Now, for the plastic insulation, this one does not allow the passage of charges, or in this case, electricity. So, ibig sabihin, hindi ka makukuryente dito kahit nahawakan mo siya. Okay? Kasi walang charges or walang electrons na magpapass through sa kanya. Okay? Kaya nga diba, sinasabi sa atin na we cannot touch bare wire. Kasi pwede kayong makuryente kapag bare wire yung hinawakan natin. Right? So with that, let's move on to charging by induction. So pag sinabi natin charging by induction, charge can be transferred from one object to another only when the objects touch. Okay, so pwede ka lang magkaroon ng pwede ka rin magkaroon ng charging kapag nagkaroon ng contact yung dalawang object. So discharging is removing a charge from an object, which you can do by touching it. Okay, so parehas yan, whether you want to charge something, you just touch an object, and then if you also want to discharge, you will also touch another object. Okay, so let's see how it goes. So charging by induction is a process where a charged object is brought near a neutral object, causing the redistribution of charges. Again, pag sinabi nating neutral object, parehas siya ng bilang ng protons and electrons, or parehas siya ng bilang ng positive charges and negative charges. So, kapag nilapit natin yung charged object na yon, whether that's a positively charged object or a negatively charged object, doon sa ating neutral object, ang nangyayari is nagkakaroon ng redistribution of charges. Pag sinabi nating redistribution of charges, ang ibig sabihin nun, parang nare-rearrange yung arrangement ng iyong positive charge and negative charge. So for instance, in this case, let's look at this illustration here. So meron tayong dito sa part A, you have two uncharged or neutral metal spheres are in contact with each other but insulated from the rest of the world. Pag sinabi natin insulated from the rest of the world, ibig sabihin, hindi po makaka-apekto yung charges from the outside environment. Okay? So ito lang dalawa na to, they are isolated. So neutral siya, uncharged, meaning parehas ang bilang ng protons and parehas ang bilang ng electrons. Now, ano mangyayari kapag meron tayong idinikit na positively charged na rod? Okay, so ano mangyayari dyan? Now, since this one is positively charged, okay, lahat ng electrons dito sa sphere na to, ma-attract sa kanya. Kasi, di ba sabi natin, positive charge attracts negative charge. Kasi magkaiba sila ng charges. So, they attract each other. Okay, so ngayon, since naging mas malapit, nagkaroon ng redistribution dito, yung negative charges natin, na-attract siya ng positively charged rod, okay? Ano mangyayari? So, ito ngayong kabilang side, okay, magiging positively charged. Okay, magiging positively charged siya. Okay? So, nagkaroon ka ng redistribution of charges. So, ang nangyari ngayon, kahit alisin mo na itong ating positively charged rod, ang mangyayari is that magiging ito, negatively charged na itong sphere na to sa left side. And then positively charged na yung sphere doon sa right side. The moment na paghiwalayin mo na sila, okay, they retain their charges. Okay, na-retain na siya. Ito naging ito naging negatively charged na. Ito naging positively charged. Okay? So, ngayon, they are now charged. Okay? So, pag ito, pinagdikit mo, okay, magkakaroon ka ng attractive force. Okay? Why? Kasi magkaiba po sila ng charges. They have a tendency to attract each other. Okay, now, there's also charging by induction. Pag sinabi nating induction, gumagamit tayo dito ng ground connection. Okay, so using a ground connection. Yung dito kanina, this is just the standard way of charging induction. Pag maglalapit ka ng charge object doon sa neutral object. Pero pag gagamit ka ng ground connection, it looks like this. So, similarly, katulad doon sa isang scenario kanina, kung meron kang um, neutral object, in this case, ito pong sphere na to. So you can see, meron siyang equal number of protons. I mean, equal number of positive charges and equal number of negative charges. So, meron kang positive 3, and then here meron kang negative 3. Now, what happens if, again, mag-i-introduce tayo ng positively charged rod? Okay, so what happens is that itong mga negative charges na to, ma-attract siya dito sa positively charged metal rod. Okay? So, then, what happens to the positively charged side ng ating ng ating sphere? Okay. Ang mangyayari ngayon dito, since ito ay magiging positively charged, yung pag nakakonect po siya sa ground, we are now allowing electrons to be attracted from the Earth's ample supply. Okay, so ito ngayon na mangyayari is that meron ka ritong negative charge from the ground. Okay, it will now be attracted to the positive charges here inside the sphere. Okay. Na pag tinanggal na po natin yung ating ground connection at tinanggalan natin yung ating positive rod, ang mangyayari is that ito ngayon ay magiging negatively charged. Okay, negatively charged na. Saan napunta yung positively charged, yung mga positive charges dito? Napunta na po siya dito sa ground. Na-attract na po siya doon sa negative charges na nandun sa ground natin. Okay, kaya nga 'di ba kapag may mga appliances tayo, if you notice, ang ginagawa is nagko-connect tayo sa isang sa ground. Okay, meron tayong tinatawag na ground wire. Okay? Usually color green to. Manipis lang siya ng color green na wire na pwede niyo siyang i-attach sa isang nail tapos nakabaon siya sa sa ground. Okay? Kasi ginagawa natin yan para hindi po tayo maka-experience ng parang electrostatic force or electrostatic charges kapag ginagamit na natin yung appliances natin. Okay? So mapapansin niyo yan, yung iba naglalagay ng pako dun sa pinaka kinoconnect nila sa pako yung kanilang ground wire. Okay? So in this case, what happens by charging by induction is that there is no physical contact between the ball and the rod, just like what you have seen. And the charged object can exert forces even on objects that are not charged themselves. Okay, so this is true. Once na meron tayong charged object, kapag nilapit mo siya sa isang object na hindi naman siya charged, or neutral yung kanyang charge, ang mangyayari is nag-exert siya ng force doon. You can actually try this. You can try this experiment. Kuha kayo ng suklay, and then yung suklay, let's say i-rub nyo siya against the surface, against any surface, kahit sa table or sa tiles or on any surface, or if you want, you can rub this with yung tela, okay, konting table, let's say yung tablecloth, pwede nyo gamitin yun pang rub dun sa suklay. And then, after siguro mga 5 minutes, okay, so in that case, we can assume na naging charge na yung comb natin. Ilapit nyo siya sa gripo, and then buksan nyo yung gripo, and then observe the flow of the water there. Pag nilapit nyo po siya doon sa stream of water, mapapansin nyo, parang gumagalaw yung water. Na-attract siya doon sa suklay. Okay? So, mas maganda kung mas manipis yung stream of water kasi mas clearly observe po siya. Okay, so after you electrify a comb by running it through your hair, you can also pick up uncharged bits of paper or plastic with it. Okay, yung mapapansin nyo yun kapag halimbawa nagsusuklay kayo, diba, kahit for example, yung balakubak, yung balakubak hindi naman siya charge pero dahil yung suklay natin, paulit-ulit natin siyang nirarub against our hair, nagkakaroon siya ng charge. Okay, so kaya kung minsan, kung papasin niyo pa nagsusuklay kayo, dumidikit kahit yung mga balakubak kasi na-attract siya dun sa suklay because the comb has a certain charge. Okay, ganun din yung buhok. Okay, kahit na hindi talaga siya actually nakapulupot dun sa comb, ang tendency, yung mga loose hair natin, na-attract siya dun sa comb because, again, the comb is now charged because of friction. So, ulitin ko lang, nagkakaroon tayo ng mga charges kapag there is typically friction between two surfaces. Okay, now let's move on to electric force. Now, when we speak of electric force, This is the same force na pinag-uusapan din natin before, which is a push or a pull, but this time, this is a result of the interaction of charged particles. So, nagkukos ng electric forces ay charged particles. And the scientist, Coulomb, okay, is the one who actually studied this in 1784, kaya nga pinangalan natin yung unit ng electric charges after him. So for point charges, Coulomb found that the magnitude of the electric force between 2 point charges is directly proportional to the product of their charges and inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. So etong relationship nito, he simplified that using an equation. So ito yung tinatawag natin na Coulomb's law. Okay, so based on this equation, you have F is equal to K, the absolute value of Q1, Q2 over R squared. Okay, so let me explain this. K here is your constant. Pag sinabi natin constant, always given na siya. Okay, permanent na siya sa problem. Parang yung acceleration due to gravity, yung 9.8 meters per second, fix na yon kapag nagko-compute tayo ng weight, di ba? Because weight is equal to mass times acceleration due to gravity. Ganun din yung Coulomb's constant. Okay, so that is 8.99 times 10 raised to the 9th Newton square meter per Coulomb squared. Okay, so tandaan nyo to kasi sa mga calculations natin sa electric force, parati po yung kasama. Sometimes you can also like round this off in 8.99 to 9 to just simply 9. Okay, that's totally fine. Okay, so here, you can see here is the product of your two charges. Okay, now itong absolute value na to, ano ibig sabihin niya, itong symbol na to, it pertains to the absolute value, meaning whether parehas positive, parehas negative, or ang isa sa kanila ay positive or negative, it doesn't matter. Okay, so hindi nyo kailangan i-consider yung sign. Ang kukunin nyo lang mismo is yung number. Alright? Yan ang ibig sabihin ng absolute value. We're just concerned with the size of that number. And then over R squared, which is R here represents the distance between the charges. Now, if you will look at this equation, kung titingnan natin, pwede nating sabihin that since magkalinya yung F at saka ito, yung Q1 and Q2, your charge, your electric charge is directly proportional to your electric force. Meaning, pag mas mataas ang electric charge, mas mataas din ang electric force. Kapag naman mas mababa ang electric charge, mas mababa rin ang iyong electrostatic force. Now, if you will look at here, your R, okay, so the R squared, this is inversely proportional to your F or to your electrical force. Okay? Ano ibig sabihin nito? Ibig sabihin niyan is that kapag mas mataas ang value ng distance or mas malayo yung distance between the two charges, mas mababa yung ating electrostatic force. At kapag mas maliit naman yung distance between the two charges, mas tumataas yung value ng ating electrostatic force. Okay? Now remember, this is squared. So meaning pag nag-double ka ng distance, ang effect niyan sa electrostatic force, it will be reduced by 1/4. Okay? Kasi naka-square siya. Okay? Similarly, kapag naman nag-reduce ka, okay, so that's 1/2, ang magiging effect naman niya sa electrostatic force is that it will increase 4 times its original value, right? Now, the electric force, or in some cases, they also call this as the electrostatic force, acts along a line directing the charges. So, ano yan, hindi siya pwedeng manggaling sa other lines. Kung sabihin, para silang, they're acting on the same line. Okay, so parallel. So, an electric force is attractive for opposite charges, again, and repulsive for similar charges. Okay, pag siya po ay katulad nito, pareha silang negative charge. So, repulsive ang ating electric force. And then, kapag magkaiba naman, katulad nito, isang negative charge at isang positive charge, ang direction ng kanyang forces is attractive. Okay, so they are attracted to each other. So, once again, the unit for your electric force is coulombs, or in symbols, we use C. Okay, now let's move on to some sample problems so para makita nyo kung paano ginagamit yung formula na yon. So example number 1, The electron and proton of a hydrogen atom are separated on the average by a distance of approximately 5.3 times 10 raised to negative 11 meters. So find the magnitude of the electric force. Okay, so based on this problem, let's look at the given. So given po natin, meron po tayong 5.3 times 10 raised to negative 11 meters. And then you have, binanggit naman kasi dito, na siya ay electron at proton. Yung pinakita kong table sa inyo kanina, we know that your proton has a charge of 1.6 times 10 raised to negative 19 Coulomb. And ganun din naman yung value ng charge ng electron. Let me just change this. This is electron. Ayan. So, parehas lang po sila ng charge value. Ang pinagkaiba lang sa proton mo, that is positive. Ang electron mo ay negative. Okay, now we're asked to find the electric force or the electrostatic force. Now, for this case, remember yung value ng K. Okay, so ang value ng K natin is, I'll just be using 8.99. So, times 10 raised to 9. This is Newton meter squared per Coulomb squared. Right? Okay, now let's go back to the formula. Okay, so this is what our formula looks like, diba? F is equal to K, absolute value of Q1 times Q2 over R squared. Okay, so let's use this formula to solve this problem. Okay, so F is equal to K, Q sub 1, Q sub 2 over R squared. Ito po ay naka-absolute value. Okay, so if we will substitute this is equal to K natin. So 8.99 times 10 raised to 9 Newton square meter per Coulomb squared. Okay. And then, ito ay nakamultiply dito sa Q1, which is 1.60 times 10 raised to negative 19 Coulomb. And then yung isa naman ay negative 1.60 times 10 raised to negative 19 Coulomb. Yan. Absolute value. Ibig sabihin, it doesn't matter whether positive or negative yan. Okay. Over, what's your R2? Ang R2 mo ay 5.3 times 10 raised to negative 11. Remember that the distance is also equal to R. So magkaiba lang sila ng symbol pero same sila ng essence. Siya yung distance between the two charges. Okay, meter. And then ito po ay naka-square. Now, if you will use your calculator for this one, this is what you will get. Their F is equal to 8.20 times 10 raised to negative 8 newtons. Now, let me show you the cancellation of units. Ito, C times C magiging C squared. Maka-cancel out siya dito dahil mayroon kang C squared dito sa denominator. And then ito, square meters, ito, magiging square meter siya, diba? Kapag in-square nyo siya. So ito, maka-cancel din. And so therefore, may iwan ka na lang na unit na Newton. Okay, so this is how you answer example number 1. Right? So ulitin ko lang, it doesn't matter whether ano yung ating sign kasi kinukuha lang natin dito is the absolute value. Okay, so let's try another example here. What is the repulsive force between two pith balls that are 8 centimeters apart and have equal charges of 0. We have equal charges of negative 30 nanocoulomb. Okay. This one, yung nanocoulomb, you can write this actually as negative 30. Ano yung sabihin ng nano? If you will go to the table of prefixes sa ating table of prefixes for the metric units, this one is equivalent to 10 raised to negative 9. Okay? Coulomb. And then ito naman, yung 30 centimeters. Remember, kailangan po natin na unit ay meter. So itong centimeter, kailangan natin siyang gawing meter. Okay? So we need to convert this. So converting this one, we have 8 cm. We know that for 1 meter, we have 100 cm. So makakancel itong cm dito. So now you have 8 divided by 100. This one will give you 0.08 meter. Okay, so you have to be very careful. I-check nyo muna kung yung units are consistent. Ang kailangan ng units na makita natin dyan ay ginagamit natin sa electrostatic force. Ay Newton, meter, and Coulomb. Okay, so ito. So, kapag yung mga given natin ay hindi nasa mga units na to, we need to convert that. Alright, so now let's do this example here. Okay, so ulitin ko lang ang nakasulat dito is negative 30 times 10 raised to negative 9 coulomb. This one is 0.08 meters. Now we're ready to substitute. So F is equal to K, Q1, Q2 over R squared. So now let's substitute. So for F, we have K first, 8.99 times 10 raised to the 9th Newton square meter over Coulomb squared. Okay, then times, kaya ito, negative 30 times 10 raised to negative 9 Coulomb. And then another one, negative 30 times 10 raised to the negative 9th Coulomb, absolute value. And then, di-divide natin siya. Yung sagot po dito, i-divide po natin sa R squared, which is 0.08 meters, and then i-square po natin siya. Okay, so once again, magkakaroon tayo ng cancellation of units. Since C squared to, makakancel siya sa C squared dito sa denominator. Then, yung square meter dito makakancel kapag ito na-square na natin. So, cancelled out din siya. Wag niyong kakalimutan na square yung ating denominator. Okay, now, kapag nagsosolve kayo nito, mas maganda sa calculator, dire-diretso lang siya. Gamitan niyo siya ng open close parenthesis. Okay, ibig sabihin, kung i-input niyo to ng dire-diretso, etong mga to, naka-input siya, gagamit kayo ng times, gagamit kayo ng parenthesis. And then, tsaka nyo gagamitin yung division operation bago ito. Okay, then ito, ilagay nyo rin siya sa parenthesis kasi kailangan nyo pa siyang i-square. Okay, or kung gusto niyo naman, mas convenient din na multiply nyo muna ng lahat ng nandito sa taas and then press equal sign before kayo mag-divide dito sa square nung denominator. Okay, na yun sa denominator, kung gusto nyo siyang indiretso sa calculator, mas maganda na lagay nyo siya sa open close parenthesis. Okay, so for this one, the answer that you will get, if you will input this in the calculator, is 0.00126. Medyo mahaba po yung number, so ni-round off ko na lang siya. Okay, so this is now the value, I'm sorry, it's not C, but rather it's Newton. Let me just erase that. Okay, this one is N, yeah, Newton. So this is your electrostatic force. So 0.00126. All right? So again, madali lang naman po yung pagka-calculate. You just make sure that you read the problem carefully and then check kung ano po yung mga units na kailangan ng conversion. Now, usually naman dito ginagamit natin is the metric system. So hindi kayo mahihirapan pagdating dito. So pag naka-encounter kayo ng mga problems na mayroong mga prefixes, I suggest that you go to the table of the prefixes. You can easily check that on Google. Pwede kayong gumawa ng Google search and you can easily find that. All right. Okay, so with that, guys, thank you so much. And for your assignment, you'll be doing the seat work that I have posted in Google Classroom. Date of submission po ng seat work is for tomorrow. And then we will also have a quiz for tomorrow. So, gagawin muna natin is that maglalab muna tayo, applying what we have learned here. So, after the lab, we'll proceed with the quiz. Okay, or pwede rin naman yung quiz before the lab. So, whichever you would rather have. Okay, so with that, guys, thank you so much and I'll see you guys on the next video.